going, man, that was all fancy and weird. It's great to see all of you. I'm really surprised by the polling. Hey, real quick, before I get started, could we just thank guys like Clyde, Kevin, Pastor Steve, Pastor Justin for putting all this together. Thank you guys so much. All right, so I got to get rolling. I was joking with Pastor Alex. It's 7 to 10 minutes for pastors. Preachers. That's a huge mistake. So I got to get rolling. But I've been asked to speak on why youth ministries matter. And I served as a high school pastor for 7 years. I'm doing college right now. I've done it for about 5.5 years. And so because I'm able to kind of understand both contexts and how one leads to the other in terms of life stage, I think there's an interesting perspective that I might be able to offer, hopefully. But maybe I can kind of set the stage for all of us. So imagine, for those of you who have been in youth ministry for some time, it's like June. You've gone to a bunch of high school graduations, right? You've made the circuit in SoCal. You went to Roland and Walnut and so forth. And about the last week of June, you kind of have that banquet, right? The end of the year, you can call it senior banquet, end of the year banquet, the hurry up and get out of here festival, whatever you call it that. Right, and there you're sitting and you're observing these seniors, and you remember some of them from when you were a freshman, when they were a freshman in high school. You remember some of them when they were in 7th grade, and there you are about to send them off to college, and you have all these memories and all these thoughts. You think about all the blood, sweat, tears that you've poured into them, all the Bible studies, all the retreats where they cried at and accepted Jesus again for the 3rd time. You remember all of those things. And you think, wow, I'm so proud of them. They've made it. They're about to enter college. And I can see by the smiles on your face, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Summer is always sentimental with that senior class, right? Friday nights, they want to come in. They're coming to your office. All of a sudden, they want to talk to you. They want to go out for boba. They peek their heads into your Friday night gatherings, and they tell you how much they miss youth group all over again. You're like, where was this enthusiasm when you're actually in my youth group? You're all smiling and laughing. And you think, this is just so nice. It's so sentimental, and then they go off to college. You fast forward a couple months, 3-4 months. It's winter break. It's December. They come back, and of course, you being a good youth pastor, you want to follow up with some of these students. And so you ask them, you have hallway conversations. You want to take them out for boba and so forth. Try to knock them all out in one sitting. And so you ask them, how was your first quarter or semester of college? And there's one student, and this one student, he or she might say something like, it was awesome. This is my roommate. I love my major. And I'm meeting new people and new friends, and I'm part of this campus ministry. It's so great. And as they're sharing about their experiences, if you're honest, like your heart, it wells with joy and gratitude. And then they say something. They say, and I found this church. And this church is awesome. And their eyes light up. Oh, some of you guys have that. You guys, right now, your face is like, oh boy, uh-oh. You know exactly what I'm talking about. They start raving about this church, how awesome and amazing this church is. And they start talking about this college group, right? And they're like, this college group is fire. The college pastor, like Friday nights when he speaks, it's like fire every Friday. And I love my small group leader. She's like so vulnerable. She's always talking about her past and the brokenness of our sins. And every Friday night, I just feel like God is speaking to me. And the more and more that the student talks and engages, if you're honest, like your heart, it sinks a little bit, right? You're like, oh, really? Yeah, great, awesome, jerk, right? And in your mind, a part of you is like, there is no way this church is that great, right? There's no way, like, right? And you start doing some research online, and you're like, is this church even like gospel-centered, right? You're listening to sermons, you listen to the first 10 minutes, you're like, they're not even gospel-centered, right? You're like, do they preach redemptive, historical? You don't in your last sermons, but you're accusing this church, right? And you're upset and you're bitter. And here's why. The reason why your heart sinks is because that student that is on fire for Jesus now and is talking about how awesome the mission of God, the gospel, and Jesus is because that student was that student in youth group. You know what I'm talking about? It's that student. They just checked out, apathetic. Senior year, they came out to half of the Friday nights. They missed the senior retreat. They missed their last winter retreat. You know that student, right? You know, some of you guys have those seniors right now. 3 of those seniors are your seniors. For some of you guys, that is your senior class, right? Just totally checked out. And so for you to see that same former youth student now in college being a part of this other church in this other college group now on fire for Jesus, like you don't know how to process that and register this. And so you start kind of trying to figure, there's no way this church could be that great. But at the bottom of the barrel of your heart, if you're honest, there's a more haunting question. And the haunting question is, how come this student didn't come alive like this under my leadership? Like, where was this love for Jesus and this passion for the gospel and mission when they sat under my preaching, when they were under my youth leaders? And the haunting question is, did I do something wrong? Like, why not me? Where was this fruit when I was their leader? And I wonder if that question resonates with some of us, if not all of us. And if it doesn't, I know that like a small portion of us, we've been less than 2 years youth ministry, you'll get there. And I just have 2 confessions, and I'm gonna try to be as honest and raw as possible right off the bat. Here's confession number 1. In my 7 years of being a high school pastor, I wrestled with that all the time. You know, for me, I was so insecure because it was early on in my ministry. And so, you know, when these students would come back and rave about these other churches, I almost saw it as a referendum against me, right? And so when students would come back and they would be struggling spiritually, I would be happy. I'd be like, yes, tell me more about how you haven't found the church, right? And they're like, oh, you know, I miss your preaching, Bang. I'd be like, oh, tell me, like, what do you miss, right? I'm like, just pulling for anything to soothe my aching ego, right? Just please, please. And so for me, I really struggled with that. So that's confession number 1. But here's confession number 2. Now being on the other end of no longer doing high school ministry and now I do college ministry, can I just be really honest and raw too? College ministry is awesome. Welcome to the SOLA Youth Workers Leaders Dialogue. It's awesome. Here's why. Because on a given Friday night, I don't have to bait any of them to come and be motivated. You know why they show up on Friday nights? They show up because they want to be. And they're hungry. They desire more. As I'm actually talking, they're Asian Americans. And I hear them like, oh shoot, snap, right? I see them taking pictures of me as I'm like, yes, take more. Yes, Instagram story me, yes, please, right? You know, for example, like there's a first year college student, he goes to Pepperdine. And he found our church and he told me a few months ago, he's like, God speaks to me here directly every Friday night. He's a freshman. He goes to Pepperdine. He helps arrange rides, 3-hour commute one way here on Friday nights. There's another freshman girl from LMU. She came here after the fall semester. She broke up with her unbelieving boyfriend, not prompted by anyone. She did it herself because she said, I want to follow Jesus. So in terms of like the fruit of things, the excitement of things, like on a given weekend, our college students, they infiltrate every department of the church, childcare, children's ministry, praise. They love it. They bring energy, excitement. Oh, and missions, it's like I don't have to convince them. Every year to get them double-digit students to go oversee missions, easy money, easy. So if you give me a choice right now, you can go back to youth ministry or stay in college, I would choose college ministry 11 out of 10 times. Just to be totally honest with you guys. But here's why. Because there's a secret about college ministry in Asian American contexts. And if you really think about it, it's not a secret, but it is a secret that I want you to know, especially you youth workers and pastors in this room. And the secret is that if you look at any church, Asian American church, where there is a viable, healthy college ministry, we college pastors, we ministers know that a significant portion of the fruit from our ministry, it has grown on the trees of youth ministries. Thank you for that. That it felt like college group on Friday nights. Instagram story, no, right? No, really. Like, I know that a number of my students, the reason why they're so hungry and eager is because of the theological training, the ministry activity that they've already been participated in on account of faithful youth pastors and youth workers and small group leaders who have year after year poured into them, and therefore now they just needed a pathway. They just needed an on-ramp to go and do that which they were already trained for. And so in my mind right now, I think about a fourth-year girl named Paulina, who's a fourth year at Pepperdine. She is one of our small group leaders. She's like one of the big sisters in our college group, and I know she was so faithfully ministered to in a small Korean immigrant church over there, over the hill in Roland Heights. You know, I think about our second-year student. His name's Nathan. He's overseas right now in China. And when he was here, he was serving everywhere. He was a leader in his parachurch ministry on campus his first year. And I know the impact that Clyde, our youth director here, had on him. Like, that is not lost on me. I think about this one guy. He's a third year. His name's Caleb. He leads our welcoming ministries. He's like one of the faces of our ministry. We would die without him. But I know there was a faithful church that ministered to him and invested him in the valley, that gave him leadership opportunities. And so right now, he's really soaring and spreading his wings because he was taught to fly in his youth group. And I could go on and on and on. I think about a second year named Christina. She's helping plan our retreat for tomorrow. In the Bay Area, she attended a Chinese church, and she considers her former youth pastor like her second father. And so I know, in college ministers and workers, by the way, or EM pastors, who can't admit this, that a portion of their fruit grows on the trees of youth ministries and youth pastors, they're either too dumb to see it, or they're too prideful to admit it. Like, I know that we stand on your guys' shoulders. We are simply building on top of what you guys have already laid. And you guys need to know this. And I want to encourage you guys to believe this. I think there's a passage, right, in the Bible that kind of describes this. I think Paul talks about this in 1 Corinthians 3. The Corinthians, they were like, we're of this youth ministry. Others were saying, no, we're of this college group. Others were saying, no, we're of this EM over here. And what Paul says is, no. Some youth ministries, they plant. Other college ministries, they water. But they're one. They're all on the same team. Now, planting in some ways is far less sexy and attractive than watering. But they're all one. They're all fellow workers. But in the end, who gives the growth? It is God who gives the growth. It's God that produces spiritual fruit. It's Him. It's Him doing it. And so at the end of the day, we're all kind of on the same gospel mission page here. Now, you might be saying like, yeah, but, like college pastors and college workers, like y'all get the benefits. Like y'all's ministries are popping and rocking. Y'all get invited to speak at retreats and conferences, and you get all the benefits. Yes and no. When my former college students, when they see me, you know what they say? They go, hey, sup, do you miss us? Like they don't even call me by my name, right? They don't even call me Bang or Pastor. They're like, you miss us? And I'm like, no. But in my heart, like I'm crying, right? My former youth students from years ago, when they see me, do you know how they talk to me? They talk to me like I'm their spiritual dad. They see me at a wedding, they're like, Pastor Bang, it's so good. They're confessing their sins. I'm like, stop, I'm tired. Like, this is a break. They want prayer. They want to meet up and have lunch. And I got ordained a few weeks ago, and there were former youth students who came, and they were saying things like, Pastor Bang, when you were 21, we already knew. We affirmed God's calling even back then. I got this essay from this youth student I haven't talked to in years, just telling me, I knew it. I'm so proud of you, Pastor Bang. I respect you. My college students, you know what they said? See you Friday, Bang, right? And so no, it's not exactly the same. And by the way, as a college pastor, I do sympathize because every 4 years I have to graduate students too, and then our young adult pastor gets all the credit. All right, so I'm in the same boat with you guys. But I say all this to say, your labor, it is not in vain. Thank you so much for your faithfulness. Thank you for doing the hard work, the grunt work of planting, that others may stand on your shoulders and water. But in the end, it is God who gives the growth and the reward, because at the end of the day, it's about His kingdom and not ours. And so I'm so grateful for all of you that we're on the same team. Thank you so much. All right.